Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We've got a few more people that are just getting logged in, so we'll give everybody a couple more minutes. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We've got just a couple more people logging in here. It's going to be a busy class. We're kind of going to do a beginning to end of a transaction, going remote and paperless. So I'm going to be taking you on quite a tour today. We are recording this, so if you want to check back and if you found something very helpful and you want to be able to go back to it, we will have this in our recording library. So we will give everybody just a couple more minutes and then we will go ahead and get started. So we've got quite a few people logging in still, so we're going to give them about 2 more minutes and we'll go ahead and get started. What you see in front of you right here is our data sharing. I'm happy to say that I think there's currently about 32,500 realtors in Michigan currently. And now, thanks to the data sharing put in place, now over 30,000 of them can access information for listings around the state. So it's very exciting. Hello, everybody. We've got just a couple more people logging in. We're going to go ahead and get started. The goal of today's class is really to show you how to do a complete transaction right from your home. Obviously, a whole lot going on. Nobody would have realized that we were going to have a global pandemic. And now that the governor issued the stay-in order yesterday, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the changes in MLS policy. So we're going to cover a whole lot today. Don't worry, if you can't remember every single thing, we are going to record this so you can go back to it. We are also going to keep putting out memos on as things change. I mean, even yesterday we had to revise this class because things are obviously changing and we're changing and trying to notify you of each one of these changes that takes place. So I would like to introduce a couple people on our call today. Because we have a large number of people logging in, what I'm going to ask is that if you have a question today, please just feel free to type it in it may look like a question box, it may look like a chat box, but if you have a question at any time today, please feel free to go in there. We have a couple people manning our chat, so let me introduce them. First, we have Taylor. Taylor taught an outstanding class this morning. Taylor, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hi, everyone. How are you all doing in quarantine?
We also have Dave DeReese on the call. He is our CEO. Dave, you want to say hi?
Hello, everybody.
All right, so we're going to cover a whole lot of information today. And basically, our goal is we are going to show you some ways that you can work completely remotely, that you can do all the way from prospecting right down to, what's the policy, what's going to change, what do I need to know, what's changing up to the minute. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I do want to take you through here is something that just happened as recent as yesterday. So we were putting together this class because we realized that people were going to be sheltering in or loose sheltering in, and we wanted to let everybody know you don't have to stop doing business. And what that means is we have to do business differently, meaning we have to do business in a way that we can do it remotely without having to have contact with people. Now, obviously, when you're talking about houses, the first question that pops up is, okay, how do I see a house, tour a house, show a house without actually being there? So we're going to show you some out-of-the-box ways.
Can I jump in?
Yes.
Okay, so what you're seeing on the screen right now is the interpretation that was put out by Michigan Realtors, the Michigan Association of Realtors, yesterday after the governor's order was released. And this is their interpretation of the order as it relates to real estate. I think what Colleen was honing in as is the very last sentence that says real estate activity that can be conducted remotely is not prohibited. So the idea that we're totally shut down is not the case, and that's what Colleen's going to do this class on, is the things that you can do. But I just wanted to mention that this is the interpretation from the Michigan Realtors. I have become aware that many brokers have their own interpretation, and some of them are slightly different than this interpretation, especially as it relates to home inspections, appraisals, and closings. So I would recommend that everyone check with your own broker to find out what your broker's interpretation is. I have not heard anybody's interpretation be any different as it relates to the showings. Everyone's in agreement that for this period, the order does mean there can be no face-to-face, in-person showings for this period, but there are differences of opinion on interpretation when it comes to inspections and appraisals and closings. So everybody check with your broker to see what your broker's interpretation is and what you'll be doing at your brokerage.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you. So we're going to actually start off at the very beginning. And as I mentioned, we're going to go all the way through how are these deals getting closed? What's happening there? So we're going to start at how do we go out and how do we get new business? Obviously, we all want to list as many homes as we can. We have to do it in a different, non-traditional manner right now. But the first thing I want to show you is even if you're at home, you don't have to stop selling. You don't have to stop getting new business. One of the things that I found very helpful is right under your resources, or I like to kind of think of it as my toolbox, there is market stats. Market stats is where you're going to start. You're going to do some lead generating, and then we're going to show you how once you've converted that lead, how you now can turn that into a listing even without being there. So let's start here. When we are talking about social media, getting new business, this is a great place to start. Market stats allows you to tell a story, like I am trying to tell sellers they're going to get more for their home in this market than they've seen in a long time because we have a very low amount of inventory. So I'm going to go to price per square foot, and maybe I want to tell my story for a couple different areas. Maybe I want to show the story for Shelby Township. Maybe I also do some business myself in Sterling Heights. So I want to start creating a story that I'm trying to tell because I want people to now list with me. I'm going to also put in, let's do Macomb. It's going to grab a couple cities, and you can actually create your own. So let's say you specialize in waterfront. You can actually draw your own shape following the waterfront, even over multiple cities under my areas, and you can actually track what's happening in that area that you specified. Now I want to make this look a whole lot easier. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to change this from kind of a illegible static graph here to basically a nice, easy to read bar graph. I want to show people how much more they're getting for their homes priced price per square foot. I also want to probably maybe do a rolling 6 months. And now I want to share this to social media. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit the share button. I probably want to do this maybe in a live graph, and then I'm going to hit share. When I view this, it's now going to give me some shareable options. And just for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and share it to Facebook, a nice easy one. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to cover everything today, but there are classes on every single thing that I'm going over. So I'm going to kind of just give you a little teaser on each one of the products and how it works together. And how it will get us from beginning to end. However, every day we have classes going on. They're via webinar. We'll show you how to use each one of these products. We'll show you hands-on how to build these type of graphs, how to share them, how to combine them with other lead generating tools. So we'll take you through step by step. We usually only have about 20 people in the classes, and that way we can take questions, keep the lines open, things like that. So once
Hey,
we've got our,
can I chime in on the market stats right now?
absolutely.
So, given the fact that a lot of people right now are kind of in this weird limbo state, they might not know what they can do, or what to communicate with their potential clients or leads. This market stats product is a great place for you to just develop content and keep in their face. And what I like to say, and Dave too, that was his term, was incubate these leads. So maybe you can comfort them with some of the stats that you see about where we are right now in the market. They might be really nervous and scared. You can show a graph and share a little description on Facebook. And then if not, then you can just keep sharing updates, statistical updates, and then they keep seeing you in their news feed on Facebook on your business page. And it's a great way to still stay in their face and keep them, find some positive information within these graphs.
Thanks, Taylor. And nobody knows this product better than you. Taylor was the one who taught this for a long, long time. You did great things with it. You actually made it even better than it was. So, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to share this to Facebook. Here's where you're going to put your call to action. Now, what has worked extremely well for me as an agent is tying this graph in with a capture. And what I mean is right inside of Cloud CMA, there is a way that people can actually reach out to you. You can capture their information and you can now actually set up a time to do a CMA with them. So if I am going to post this, I probably think I would probably go into Cloud here. I would go into lead generation. And as you can see here, you've got your landing page. I would copy this link because when you copy this link, you can paste it right into your post. And Taylor, you have some really good rules about your post, don't you? How long and short they should be. Can you chime in on that?
Yeah, I usually recommend about three sentences if you can, or 3 longer sentences, just a short paragraph, telling them what the graph is, why they should care, that story behind it. Because if they just see a little snap of this graph, they don't want to have to think. So do the thinking for them, tell them what the graph is and what that means to them in this market, or what it means to them being a buyer or a seller, and then a call to action. Check out this interactive graph. If you have any further questions or you would like one specific for your area or neighborhood, please call me here or direct message me on my Facebook page. Give them what options to reach out to you. So you tell them what it is, you tell them why they should care, and then that call to action. It's usually about 3 to 4 sentences.
So the nice thing is when you post this, not only, and by the way, you could boost this post if you wanted to pick up more listings, let's say in Sterling Heights, you could pick an area, you could boost a post that way. But the nice thing is when let's say your friends on Facebook see this graph, they can click into it. It's an interactive graph, so it's going to show them the numbers. But the real key here is that you've also put this lead capture in here. So what I did is I said, if you want to know what your home is worth, simply click the link below or give me a call. When they click the link below, it's actually going to open up my property page that's branded to me. They're going to put in their address, say 41539 Wessel, and it's going to autofill. It's going to then find it on the map and require them to put in a name and an email. And it's got to be a real email because it's actually going to send information to them on your behalf. But really behind the scenes, the whole goal is it's capturing their address and their contact information for you, the agent. They can also put an optional phone number in, or they could even go ahead and put in the square footage to get more accurate comps. So behind the scenes, what's really happening is it's just grabbing some random comps. It is also pulling in things like your agent resume or any marketing pages you've set up in Cloud, which have now been emailed over to them. So they are getting something right away from you However, now you can follow up and do a real CMA for them. All right, so what you're seeing right now is what they receive initially, tells them if they want a more accurate valuation of their home to give Colleen a call. Here's her cell phone number, but I've also just emailed them my resume and some marketing pages about me. Taylor, anything you want to add in there?
No, great, looks good.
All right, so the next thing is, so now you've got your social media post. Now you're starting to get those calls and sellers saying, you know what? I would like to go ahead and get my home listed. So can you come over and list my house? Well, obviously right now we're in a quarantine, and it definitely is making it a little more challenging because we're not able to just get in our cars, drive over and tour the houses. So now we've got to start doing a little more research than we have in the past. So where do we go from there? Well, we need to go in and start researching it by one, you can pull up the closed property report. So if the property has closed previously, I would want to go in, and I'm going to say, I just grabbed a random listing here.
Do you have a good question about the lead generation, Colleen?
Okay.
Megan asked, is there a landing page through Cloud CMA that's already set up? And the answer to that, if I understand correctly, is yes. So when you go into Cloud CMA, it's under that lead generation tab that Colleen clicked on, and that actual form that they fill out that you would share on social media is already formatted, created. It's nothing you have to do. However, if you do want to customize, you have that option under your settings for the types of reports. So if there's certain things that you want to take out before you share this lead generation, you can swap those out or add certain ones in and then save it, then go to the lead generation tab.
Correct, and it's already set up for you. As Taylor mentioned, it's right there. All you have to do is go to your icon within Cloud, as I just showed you. It's all set up. All you have to do is copy the link. By the way, you can also embed that link in your email signature. You can attach it to a website. So there's a whole bunch of things you can do to capture those leads. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start researching the properties. So I'm going to say, you know what? I now have done some social media posts. I'm getting those calls. People want to start listing their home. So what's next? So now I've got to start doing a little more research. So one of the things I want to do is I probably want to pull up the closed properties. So I want to probably go in. Now, when I say you're doing research, I don't mean you're actually going and taking someone else's photos here. I'm not recommending that at all. But what I do want to do is I kind of want to know a little bit about the interior of the house. I can see a little bit here because obviously I can't get in my car and drive over, so I can do a little bit of research. Now, obviously they may have painted it a different color. It may look different. And certainly the condition of the property does play a big part when we're pricing it. But what I'm trying to do now is just get as much information as I can remotely. So I'm going through these photos and kind of getting an idea of the layout of the home. But I also want to now get the tax records so I can get things like how many bedrooms, what's the square footage, how many baths, does it have a garage? Because I haven't been there. I'm not getting in my car and driving over there. So at this point, you can use the BS&A integration that's located right here. I apologize, it looks a little like a trash can. Don't you think, Taylor? It looks a little more like a trash can than a government pillar.
Yes.
We've been teasing Brian about this for a couple of months. Brian is our chief technical officer at My Real Source, and I keep saying it looks like you should delete the listing here. But actually, if you run your mouse over it, you'll see that it is actually the BS&A integration. We do something a little different than other MLSs. We actually link to the live BS&A server. I recently had a closing, and it had some unpaid property taxes. And in that morning, they went into the municipality, they paid the taxes, and we were only able to close that day because we have the live BS&A server that actually showed that the taxes were paid. If it had been a link taking a day or two to feed over, we wouldn't have been able to close. Another important thing is My Real Source members, as a member benefit, get something really unique. When you log into BSNA, in many cases or many municipalities, it will ask you for $2 for the property record. If you are a My Real Source member, you get Genesee, Macomb, and all of the gross points at no cost. That means if you're going in and you're pulling up the integrated property record and you click on it, you'll see that My Real Source is actually paying those fees on your behalf, part of your membership. So one of those perks that we're able to offer. So if I want to go in and I want to check out the BSNA record, I'm going to click on that integrated link. It's going to now take me into that property record. And as you can see, there's no fee. Now, not every municipality charges a fee. Some do and some don't. But the whole idea is it's really nice at the end of the year when I haven't had to pay all those $2 fees. So this takes me right into the property record through the live BSNA server. And I can now go in, I can see who owns the property. I can start seeing what the square footage is, bedrooms, bathrooms, because again, I can't get in my car and drive over there. I have to do a little bit more research this way. Now, I'm a huge fan.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Tom asked what, if you were to research a property that's never been sold on the MLS before, BSNA information, it should be used instead. Could you explain to him why BSNA is more valuable?
BSNA is the actual trusted record. So for instance, if you ever, knock on wood, I've never had this happen yet, but if you ever had to go before a judge and you had to go through a litigation on a property, this is the record that they're actually going to look at because it's the actual municipality record. Other sources are generally combined sources, like Realist is another source that we offer. But Realist is a combined source from the MLS and tax records, and therefore it's not coming from one place. So a judge will generally throw that out. So BSNA is really where you want to start your research. It really is the trusted record. Dave, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. So BSNA is the software that the cities and townships use to collect and store their data. So it is the official record of the township or the city. The other thing is that the link, the integrated deep linking that we have with them, it's actually going into their live server. So if an assessor made a change to a property record this morning, you would see it this afternoon. That's different than other tax software. The rest of them are all aggregated data that is pulled and takes time. Sometimes it can take months for a change to show up in a Realist record, for example. So the BSNA record is the most timely, the most accurate. We've had examples where the BSNA record has the correct square footage. Realist is pretty close, and some other public records are considerably far off. So yeah, the BSNA is the live one. It's in real time. It connects to the server in real time, so it's definitely the best one.
All right, thank you. And a lot of times I've noticed even more information there. Like I recently listed a property in Warren. It had been tagged by the city, and it actually had the unpaid water bills in BSNA. It had information of the code, some things that needed to be improved upon, and how much it was going to be. And so a lot of those cities and townships are now actually including that right in the BSNA record. So for this person who was not a, go ahead.
Now, I just wanted to say Tom's question about what if it had never been listed in the MLS, that it is correct that if it's never ever been listed in the MLS, then we don't have a deep link to it. We are looking into how we can take care of those properties, but for right now, we don't have a deep link for those properties. But we do keep all of our listings. We do not purge them, so we have listings that go all the way back to 1994. So for a vast majority of properties, we do usually have a record. And if there's a record, even if it's a sold record from 20 years ago, the deep link will be there and will function.
Great question. Taylor, do we have any other questions before we move on?
Nope, just people really happy about it and nice to share. So positive feedback on BSNA.
Awesome, that's great. All those $2 add up. So on top of the BSNA, which is obviously the trusted.
Yep. There was a follow-up. Sorry, Colleen, just popped up. There was a follow-up from Tom just asking, can he establish his own account and log in directly into BSNA in case there was no MLS history?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And we can follow up with him on that as well. So remind me that we'll have to get back with him on that.
Good question. So in addition to BSNA, because obviously we can't go to the property, we want to get as much information as possible. I also do check Realist. Now, BSNA obviously is the trusted record. I'm looking there, but I do look in Realist because every once in a while you do find a discrepancy. So you'll notice right by the property ID, you'll see the integration to BSNA, so it takes you right in there. You'll also see the integration into Realist. 3 days ago, Realist got a facelift, kind of a makeover, if you will. It does not run on Flash anymore. Thank you very much, because it seemed like it took a little bit to open. Now it's much faster. I think it's much easier to read. But I just had a situation where I went into BSNA, and sometimes you will find discrepancy between the MLS and the tax information. So sometimes you'll see MLS, and then next to it, you'll see tax. In this particular case, the MLS had it listed as a 2-story. The tax record had it listed as a 1-story. And actually what had happened was the homeowner in Sterling Heights had added an addition to the property, but he never pulled a permit with the municipality. So the municipality thought it was a 1-story, and actually he had added a second level on. So these are things that you would only notice by going into both records. If there is a discrepancy, you'll see it in Realist. A lot of times if it's pulling from the MLS and the tax information. BSNA is obviously important, but now we're kind of compiling the facts of the home. We're getting together, how many bathrooms, what's the square footage. We're kind of getting an outline of the property. Now, unfortunately, condition plays a really big part. And I know everybody's wondering the big question, well, how do you show it? What's the process? So we're gonna cover all of that. But again, you want to use things like the photos for the layout. You obviously don't want to use anyone else's photos, but you want to do as much research as you possibly can so that when you're getting ready to list this home, you have all of the details.
And Colleen, speaking of research, we had somebody Jason ask, is the information that gets pulled into Cloud CMA come from BSNA? So can you talk about what they should do to verify that information and how our auto pull or auto pop works with CMA?
Sure, and actually that was the perfect timing because we're going into CMAs now. So we've got our property information. I'm going to load up a search, just kind of a general one. I think I called it ABC search here today. I'm just going to kind of use just a run-of-the-mill area. So I went in, and I'm going to show you exactly how the autofill does work in Cloud. I'm also going to show you very quickly how easy Cloud is if you haven't used it before. But basically, now that I have the property detail, I want to go in and I want to pull things like the closed properties. I probably want to go 6 months back. I generally like to do a 1-mile radius, especially in the Sterling Heights area. I've got my bedrooms, I've got my bathrooms. I'm going down to square footage and I'm adding things like I generally use a 20% rule because that's what a lot of appraisers use. So I take the square footage, which is about 1361 for this property. I'm adding my 20% on top, 20% below. So now I have my suggested square footage range. Now I want to go ahead and I want to search those properties. And again, we have a whole class on this. So if I'm going very fast, I apologize. We're going to try to cover a lot today. But there is a whole CMA class that shows you exactly how to do this. Now, when I always got to this screen, when I first got started in using cloud, I always found the screen very cumbersome. I have OCD and I kind of like everything lined up in a certain order. So I like to click on the status here so I can sort my pendings with my pendings, my closed with my closed. I obviously would want to go in and do a little bit of research and look at these properties and see what the condition is. For the sake of our time limit today, I'm not going to do quite as much research as I normally would. I'll grab a couple pendings here. And now I'm going to use the quick action link. So I call this the easy button, if you will. I'm going to take all of these properties and I'm now going to push them right over into cloud. You have to be careful because there's a couple different CMA options here. I do not recommend this CMA option. There's also cloud has a really great buyer tour if you're looking to show buyers a home. So you want to make sure you're finding the right cloud. And so I'm going to go into cloud CMA. Now, the nice thing is when I'm pulling that over, you can see right down here, it's pulling in those listing numbers for me. I'm now going to simply give it a name, like we'll call this Sally Seller. I'm going to go ahead and enter the subject property address. And I think this is your question, Taylor, and maybe the person who asked the question can chime in. This is actually derived from public records. I don't think it comes directly from BSNA. Dave, would you know? I don't think it's BSNA. I think it's just
No, it's not BSNA. It's a aggregated public record thing.
Perfect. So when I added in the address, you can see it already started filling in the property specifics for me. If you've got a photo, again, I a lot of times will go to BSNA and I will use that photo that's right there. And now I want to go ahead, simply fetch those listings. And basically, I'm starting my CMA from my homework. I'm taking the tax information. I'm taking the, it's always a lot nicer when we can go in and we can say, yeah, I went through the property and it looks like this or it looks like that. But right now, we don't really have that luxury. So we've kind of got to go on, what we have. We only have so much information to work with. And so I'm trying to build the closest CMA that I possibly can. And I'm just going to go in here. Second to load here. Right into listings here. All right. So now what it's doing is it's pulling over those properties and I'm basically able to set my price range. What I would recommend is when you're doing this, before you're getting into the detail, it's really great if you call the seller and say, you know what, I would love it if you could send me a few pictures about the home. I would love it if you could just take your camera phone and if you could actually give me a tour of your house. Now, obviously, that gets into copyright. We're going to talk about if you were using those photos and using those tours in just a few moments. But keep in mind, when you're really trying to put together your price right now, because we can't go into the homes, it's a great idea to have those sellers step in and help us. One of the decisions made today by our CEO was there are some required things currently that we are going to lift the requirements on at the MLS. And what I mean by that is currently we make you put in those room sizes. We are going to actually lift that temporarily. It will just be a temporary thing so that obviously we don't know if a seller is capable of measuring all the rooms on their own. So things like room measurements, those are going to be one of those things that we're going to lift temporarily while we're going through this hard time so that you can still get these properties in. I do recommend having those sellers take those photos for you, do those tours with their, with their phones, so that you can at least get an idea of the condition of the property, because certainly the condition of the property is going to impact what the property sells for.
Now,
Taylor,
Colleen, in terms of a practice, there's a question. If you're doing a CMA in a rural area, where there aren't very many homes, do you vary the radius, vary the square footage, or both? I am trying to understand best practices for this.
Great question. Yes, and we teach you a little bit more about that in the CMA class. Yes, I'm using an area where there's a lot of homes that are very similar to each other. But as you get out into the country and the rural areas, it becomes a little bit more of a tricky nature, because sometimes I listed a house in Casco recently, and there's no houses like it, for a couple of miles. I mean, it's not like a cookie cutter house. So what I try to tell people is try to stay as close as you can. But yes, it's not uncommon that over there you have to go maybe 3 miles or 5 miles. We'll teach you a couple more of those tricks. Sometimes you can't, you have to leave it a little bit more you might not be able to lock it down just to 3 bedrooms. You might have to be 3 to 4. You might have to expand your parameters so that you can cover a larger area. But again, that's a little bit more detailed. But yes, definitely in the country, can't always follow the exact pattern I gave you today. All right.
Just so everybody knows who's currently on, if you are on the webinar and you need to step away for anything, be sure not to close off of the webinar, just minimize or step away, because we are at capacity for the number of attendees. So we don't want you to not be able to log back on if you accidentally closed out. So just keep that in mind moving forward, since it's a 2-hour class. If something comes up, don't close out.
And I am recording this, so if for any reason you do lose your connection and you want to replay this, there will be a broadcast that you'll be able to go back to, okay? So really good questions, and keep them coming. And thank you, Taylor, for manning all the questions. Because it's a little bit harder, I also recommend giving yourself a little price range here. You can put an exact number in. Remember, when you're doing your CMA and you want to go into details and adjustments, one of the things that I actually do here is I actually put in notes. Now, this is something new, by the way, that Cloud has. I used to go in and a long time ago when I started doing CMAs, I would get like a Post-it note and I'd stick it on each one of the properties, and I'd say, well, this one closed for less because it didn't have a garage, and this one closed for less because it didn't have central air, and whatever it happens to be. Now, what I generally do is I will go right into the comments area here, and I will say no garage or no central air, or I will actually put the comments in here. When you hit update, it will actually pull those comments right into your CMA report. So it's almost like using a little Post-it note to detail something. Sometimes I'm afraid I'm going to forget, why did that one close lower, especially if you have a few comps in your report. All right. Next, you want to customize your report. Now, what I like to do is I like to put in things like the BS&A record. I showed you that earlier. You can actually save that and pull it right into your Cloud report. I also put the real list record, and I do things like I include the market stats. You can have as many custom pages as you want, and you can actually put them in whatever order you want. So one of the things, and I'll show you, I pull in the sold property records. So if I know when the property sold, I will actually pull in that sold property record to be part of my CMA. Things like we showed you market stats, but market stats has what they call fast stats. See if I can find one quickly. With one click, you can create these really cool graphs. So if I wanted to show what was going on in a particular township, I could show, well, right now, the inventory of homes in Washington Township is down 20%. A lot of times you'll see that impacting your sales price. So we can quickly educate that seller on the condition of the market in their area. So you want to pull in things like, again, the BS&A record. All of these things can be pulled in as custom pages. Open up this one. Good one to show. I got the BS&A record here. I want to pull that one in. Again, this one happened to have a water bill that hadn't been paid for quite some time, so I was actually able to pull that right in. A question that always gets asked when we're talking about CMAs is, well, what about the condition of the property? Well, remember, if you have photos, if the seller sent you some photos, you can pull those photos into your CMA. What I generally will do is I will put them onto a Word doc, save it, and pull it into Cloud. So I can actually have the subject property in there. So in this case, this house needed a lot of work, unfortunately, and I wanted to be able to show him that that's why I was recommending the price was going to be on the low side. So what I did is I just put all the photos that I had right on a Word doc, and I put them right in the CMA so we could cover the condition of the property when we were looking at it. All right, makes sense? How are we doing, Taylor? Any questions at this point?
Good. I'm responding to some of them privately, but all of them that would be more relevant to the group, I've just acknowledged out loud. So I'm watching them as they come through. Sorry if a couple of them, there was one that got missed. I sent a private message regarding it, but yeah, they're getting responses.
Perfect. Thank you, Taylor. And let me know if I need to stop at any point.
Okay.
Lastly, you're just going to publish your report. Now, the challenge is we're not with those sellers, right? So I now need to go over this report with my seller. So I would suggest that you can do two things. One, of course, you could email this over to your seller so that they have a copy. I'm going to kind of show you what mine looks like here. I'll try to blow it up full screen so you can see it. So here's my CMA. By the way, Cloud got a makeover, and you're going to notice that you can now add your picture at the bottom. There's a lot more that you can do. It's got kind of a cleaner look. But again, I've incorporated that market stats graph. I've incorporated the BS&A record. I've incorporated when I sold them the home a few years ago. I also made up this little graph that shows where I'm going to be advertising their home, where it's going to be displayed. And every time you go on a listing appointment, I'm sure you hear the same question. Hey, you gonna put my house on Zillow? Hey, where are you gonna advertise my house? So what I did is I just decided to actually create something like this. So it was right in the beginning of my presentation, and I could actually answer their question even before they asked it. Then we go into the actual comps themselves, and they've got some great marketing pieces that you can include. I really like the one at the end that talks about a little bit about commission, a little bit about how, you know, the sell side gets some of the commission, the list side gets some of the commission, this one right here. So there's some really cool things. Now, if you don't want to add all that, you don't have to. But the nice thing is when you're actually walking your seller through it over the phone, it makes a perfect presentation, and it's really easy to do. As you can see, it does not take that long. Cloud also has an interactive presentation, and I really like this. When your CMA is completed, you will see the slideshow option. And what that is it's more of an interactive presentation. If you don't want to get bogged down in the details, you can actually send them the link, and they can either swipe through the presentation or they can click. But the nice thing is if they say, hey, did Joe Schmagegi over there, did he have a finished basement? It's interactive. So they can actually click on the map where the home is located, and they now can see a cleaner, more easy to understand view. So if they want to see, did we have a finished basement? The pictures can be blown up, and you can actually go through it with them. Did I miss anything? Taylor, anything you want to add? You're always really good at this Cloud class.
Not right now. I'm responding to a couple right now. Sorry.
That's all right. Thanks for doing that. So I'm going ahead. I'm scrolling through. I'm going through all of the comps. Again, I can put a range in there. It's going to tell them approximately how long it's going to take, the average days on market. And so there's a whole bunch of great marketing pieces that you can use. At the end, you can also email them that full report. So it just makes it a little bit easier for the sellers to compare the comps to their home. Again, the big takeaway here is having them send you the photos, having them do a little walkthrough on their camera, because obviously we want to keep you safe, we want to keep them safe, so they can actually do that and submit those to you. All right, so now it comes to congratulations. You've built your CMA, you've gone over the pricing. Now we're ready to list the property. And as we mentioned, one of the keys here is we are lifting the requirements just temporarily for room sizes so that your sellers won't have to measure. We're trying to make it as easy as possible to get those listings in. Now the next question comes up, well, My admin generally puts my listings in, and that's very common. So how are you getting those data sheets over to the admin to do that? So we're going to now look at Instanet and listing the property. So Instanet, the key here is if you are on this call and you are a broker, and I know there's other brokers that use, I know Real Estate One, for instance, may use Zip Form, but the data sheet is really what we want to focus in on. The data sheet is where you can fill in the information and you can basically create a partial listing. So there's basically two rules of thought here. One, sometimes the admin is putting in the listings, and then other times the agent themselves are putting in the listings. I'm gonna close some of these out here to get a little bit faster. So if your admin is the one that is putting in the listings for you, you can still go in, use the data sheet, and you can push that data sheet over to your admin, or as an agent, again, you can use that data sheet to upload your listing. Now, when I'm doing that, I don't want to have to do a lot of data entry. I don't want to have to key a lot of things in. So I want to be able to pull right from the tax records. So let me go in, try to reopen this a little quicker here. When I'm pulling that information into Instanet, it's very easy to pull direct from the tax record. Oh, it's a little bit faster. Everybody in the world is working from home today, so. I want to be able to pull that information into a data sheet. And if you're a broker on this call, what I recommend is making it easy for your agents by having packets that are already established. If you're a broker on this call, having your listing packet, having your sales packet, a possible lease package. So when your agents are creating these, they know exactly what forms to use. If you're a broker, I also suggest giving your agents the clause library. This allows you as the brokerage to create your own clauses or your own legal language that you want them to use. So I again recommend both of those. We teach those in the Instanet class, but let's take a look at the data sheet first.
Hey, Colleen, we have a few questions regarding documents.
Okay.
Victoria asked, a potential seller of mine has an appraisal from 2017. Would I be able to use the room dimensions from that appraisal packet?
I think
Given the
that
room dimension topic that came up earlier today, this might be a kind of a good one to talk about.
I think, again, we're not going to make you put in room sizes. So if it were me, I probably wouldn't do that. But I think, question, can I defer that to Dave? Dave?
Well, you can either decide to wait till you can go measure it yourself, or you could use those. If you're going to use those, I would probably, when you do get a chance to, when this order is lifted and you do get a chance to go to the property, I would just measure it to verify them. But I would go ahead and utilize those if that's what you want to do.
Okay. Once I started my transaction, as you can see, I've now pulled in a lot of information right from the tax records. And again, we have a whole class on this, so don't worry. We'll walk you through beginning to end. But the nice thing is, as you can see under forms, all of my required brokerage forms are dropped right into the transaction. So as I go now into my data sheet, it's going to start auto-filling right from that tax information. But if my admin is going to be the one who needs to check the listing, many brokerages have the policy that the admin is the only one entering listings. Well, that's fine. I can fill out my data sheet. I can click the upload listing button. I can send all this information into Paragon as a partial listing. I'll actually show you how that works. Now, if your admins are doing your data entry, this is where I would pick up the phone, call the admin and say, hey, I just put a new listing in. They are going to go into partials. I'm going to show you this kind of from an admin world. Your admin can find your name in the list. They can go into that partial that I just created here. They can then go in, add photos for you. They can add documents like your seller's disclosure, your lead-based paint. So they actually can go in and finish up that listing and make it live by hitting save. Now, if you are the agent, you can do the same thing. You can click that upload listing button, and if your broker's policy is that agents can enter their own listings, like my brokerage, then I can go in and I can add those things on my own. But then we get into the area of, okay, well, where do the pictures come from? Well, if the seller has sent you the photos, remember the person who owns the photo copyright, and I learned this from Taylor in her great photography classes, the person who owns the copyright is the person who clicked the shutter. Is that correct, Taylor?
Yes.
See, I took notes in your class.
Yes, anybody who clicks the shutter owns the copyrights to that photo. Now, the only way that that would be an exception if you were to click the shutter is if you were under contract with somebody, that they hired you under their company and then you click that shutter. However, for majority of the situations out there in the real estate world, if you, the agent, click the shutter, you own it. If the seller clicks the shutter, they own it. So it's a third-party photographer that you hired. Even if they give you a limited licensing to use for X, Y, and Z, they still technically own the copyright. So you don't have any ownership in where this industry evolves. And so with that, we strongly recommend getting the copyrights from anybody that clicks the shutter, so that you are protected no matter what with anything that can change in our industry.
So Taylor and Dave and Tracy actually did this quite a while ago. I think about 5 years ago now. They actually created copyright forms. You can find these in the MLS docs right inside of Paragon or right within Instanet. So I'm in Instanet right now, and I've got this photo copyright form folder. When I click that open, the one that we're recommending that you use is the alternate broker, agent, and photographer joint ownership. And what that does is it gives you the permission to use those photos, as well as the seller gets that joint permission because they took those photos. So it kind of gives you joint ownership. Is that correct, Taylor? I know you know a whole lot more about that than I do.
Yep, so whoever signs the copyright agreement or whoever took the shutter will own equal rights to do what they need to do, whether they want to use them for marketing purposes. And then you, as the agent, will still have equal rights to do what you need to do with them, whether it's after the property is sold for your own marketing purposes. You're not under any limited licensing based on what that photographer put in place, but your photographer is not being held back for what they need to do to run their business as well. So this joint ownership document is a really good compromise between both you and the photographer.
Well,
And
and in
it's
this
one
case,
page, which is nice.
and in this case, we're anticipating, because of this governor's order, the photographer would be the seller. And to keep it simple, it makes more sense to say to the seller, here, you take the photos, send them to me and send me this assignment of copyright. We will both own the rights, all the rights to the photos. And the other reason we're suggesting you use this one is this is the simplest of all the copyright forms we have. It's a simple one-page document.
Perfect. I did see one question that popped up that asked if these forms are anywhere else besides Instanet, and the answer is yes. Right in Paragon, you have a lot of people don't even know that this is here, but right inside of Paragon, you have the MLS documents right up here at the top. Once you click in there, there's an education folder with cheat sheets, and you'll also find those copyright forms there. Another question.
And on our website too.
I didn't know that.
MyRealSource.com website, if you just don't want to have to log into Paragon to find it, or Instanet, and you just want to quickly pull it up on your phone, and you want to go to our website, MyRealSource.com. Under our services, there's a whole tab called Photo Copyrights, and you can just export it from there, or open it up from there right on your phone and send it to wherever you need to send it to.
I didn't even know that. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so another good question that came up in Taylor's variety show today. We call it mixing it up with my real source, and basically we take different topics and different guest speakers, and it was a really great class. And one of the questions that came up today was, what happens if with the seller's disclosure? What if your seller can't print or scan those back to you? Well, Instanet actually allows you to send the seller's disclosure in an open format so that the seller can actually fill it out. So in order to do that, there is one little thing you need to know. When you're sending the seller's disclosure out, you're going to file, send, you're going to send it via email. I'm just going to say, I'm just going to do the seller's disclosure this way. And again, we'll teach you this in the class, so don't worry, I'm going kind of fast. I'm going to send it to my seller. I'm going to type in their email address. The only difference is I am going to send it as a link, and I'm going to allow them to fill it out. I would probably put a little subject line in here, like, you're listing your home, your seller's disclosure is attached, whatever it happens to be. You can even put in an expiration date. So maybe I want them to fill it out by tomorrow, and then you can go ahead and send it. When it comes to them, it comes in an unlocked format, and it comes from you, the agent. So they recognize it. It comes from Colleen DeLange, coming from me. And this form is just like you see it here. They can go in, they can check things off. The nice thing is all they have to do is fill the form out and hit save. It will automatically, within 3 minutes time, be emailed back to you, the agent, and it will go right back into the file within Instanet. So you don't have to worry if they don't have a scanner or they don't have a way to print it, it still will come right back to you. The only other thing to remember is, because it's an unlocked document, when we start talking about e-signatures, you want to send this ahead. You want them to fill it out, and then what you want to do is you want to send all of the documents to them so they can be e-signed together, because you cannot e-sign an unlocked doc. Does that make sense, Taylor? I know that was one of the questions I saw it just briefly pop up. Hopefully I explained that.
Basically, what you're saying is it's a two-step process. You send it to them, they fill it out, they send it back, and then you're going to include it together with the listing agreement for them to sign all the documents at the same time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because the e-sign, in order for e-signs to be legal and binding in all 50 states, they have to meet the UTA compliancy, and that means it must be a locked document. So obviously you can't lay a legal binding signature on something that can be edited or modified or changed.
Right.
Okay? So when the seller gets it, it's actually you can see it right here, it comes from me, the agent. It's got a little pen where they're able to go ahead and they're able to click on it, and it will open up in a format that allows them to fill it out. They can even fill out, if they make a mistake, they can check it or uncheck it. The fields are all fillable, so if they want to put information about the basement, I can go ahead and start typing in those fields. All they have to do is hit save. They can, of course, print a copy. They can blow it up and make it larger if they need to, but it's a very simple interface for your seller. All right. Moving on past there, so we've now listed the property, we've done the data sheet, we've now put it into the MLS, we've now made sure that our seller signed the copyright form. And the next thing is, well, how are we going to start marketing that? So how are we marketing that home? And one thing that I would encourage you to do is to brand your branded tour and do an unbranded tour. And what I mean by that, let me go ahead and pull up my listing. I've got a couple tours in here to show you. When you're adding in your listings, there are actually 4 fields where you can go in and add tours. So I would go into my listing, just open that listing up like if I were adding it right now. And I'm going to go down to the area that says compensation and tours. My GoToMeeting box out of the way here. Scrolling all the way down, there's compensation and tours listed right here. This is where you can put your branded and unbranded tours. Branded is obviously where you can say, hi, my name is Colleen DeLange. I'm with ABC Realty. Here's my phone number. Would love to show you this property. That means anything that you are interacting directly with your client, this would be the type of tour you would want to include. Now, obviously, the unbranded tour is going to be featured in the MLS, featured in Collab Center, where other agents are sending information out to their clients. Obviously, they don't want you and your contact information going out to their clients.
So for example, client reports.
Good example. Client reports would be a very good example of that. And we've added the unbranded tour to the client report. We've added it also in the single property website. We have the branded tour. So some you'll see branded and some you'll see unbranded. So let's actually take a look at the single property website one. The single property website is under List Track. I'm just going to use this particular.
So Colleen, one of the questions is basically what you're about to cover here, but I just want them to know that it's coming up. How can you do a tour if you can't go to the house to take the video unless your seller takes it? So I know you're going into the tours and just, letting them know about the seller side and everything.
Well, let me talk about that. Right now, under the governor's order, you would not be able to do the tour. If you already had one done, obviously you could put it in there. Right now, if you're listing a new listing today, you would need the seller to grab a video, and the only way to do that would be the unbranded. So for the next 3 weeks, basically, you're going to be limited. If you don't already have one done, you're limited to the unbranded. And I want to talk about the verbiage. You'll notice in those 4 spots, there's the one that starts out with the word branded. There's 2 of those. And then there's the 2 that don't, just say virtual tour or video tour. If it doesn't say branded, then it is unbranded. We don't use the term unbranded because the consumers are going to see that, and we don't want them to see the word unbranded. We just want them to see the word virtual tour or video tour. So when you are seeing that term, whether it's on the single property website or whether it's on any other reports, if you see where it says virtual tour or video tour, that is supposed to be the unbranded tours, meaning that you can't say your name in it, you can't have your contact information in it. It has to be plain vanilla with just walking through the house. And the reason there's 2 is because they were designed to have, if you're walking through the house, that can be one of them. The other one can be either like a Matterport one where you have hired somebody to do a Matterport version, or you've hired somebody to do a drone flying over the house. So that's why there's 2. So there's 2 available for unbranded, and there's 2 available for branded. Obviously, today, for the next 3 weeks, you're probably not going to be able to do, if you don't have one in the can already, you're not going to be able to do a branded tour unless you can use Photoshop or something and add it yourself.
And Tom, I responded to his question privately, but he did ask a good question about the virtual tours and how you get that into Paragon. And it does have to be a link. So what we talked about in the first class is when your seller makes the video, they can send you that video. You can upload it to YouTube or Vimeo. The Paragon accepts a link. It doesn't allow you to upload like a movie file or an MP4 file. You have to have it somewhere hosted. Obviously, YouTube's the most popular. You can add it to YouTube and then paste that link in.
That's all I did. I'm not super techie. I will tell you, I literally went through with my camera phone. I have an iPhone, and I literally just uploaded it to YouTube. So it was not was not even hard, because then I wouldn't have been able to do it.
And then Pam asked, what's the difference between using the video tour and the virtual tour? They're just labeled a little differently. It's what you make of it. But a real virtual tour would be walking through the house, narrating, explaining, highlighting the features of the house. And then a video, we just labeled it video so that you have other options, you know, aside from what's going on right now, but you have other options if you wanted to work with a let's say a drone operator and they created a video for you, or you wanted to do a promotional commercial of the property, you can do that. If you want to just do a slideshow, you can do that. So we labeled them differently, video tour and virtual tour. But either way, it's a link. Just know that you have different options of how you can promote the property, and just utilize the unbranded and branded where it's fit.
The advantage is that it's two links that you can use your imagination. The only criteria is you have to be careful that if it's unbranded, meant to be an unbranded, keep it unbranded. Don't have your name or your contact information in there. And if it's branded, then you can put your name and your contact information in there.
And Tom asked too, does it have to be YouTube? It does not have to be YouTube. It just has to be a link. It can't be a file. So it has to be a link somewhere. So like Colleen's, if you want to pull it up real quick, Colleen, she had a Circle Pics slideshow put together. That's hosted somewhere other than YouTube. So
here's the single property website.
You're fine.
So here's what Taylor's referring to. So on the single property website, I have my branded tour, because obviously I'm inviting clients to come in and see my property website. And these would be my clients, and they would see that branded tour.
So any live link can be pasted in there. However, for your seller that's doing this tour for this situation going on, the seller then puts the link, sends you the movie file. You can put it on your YouTube channel and easily paste it in.
Very good. And truly, when I did this with my iPhone, and I'm no photographer like Taylor, you know, she takes great photos and great tours. So, but all I did is I literally grabbed my phone and walked through kind of a guided tour. Again, I introduced who I am and my brokerage. And then I just went ahead and I guided them. So you can see I'm kind of just walking through the house, going through the different rooms. I'm just kind of fast forwarding it so you can see it. And then of course that is your branded tour. That is what is on my single property website. Another thing that Taylor really pushed in her classes, and I'm so glad she did because I utilize it a lot, is really having detailed descriptions. So if these sellers, you know, they're probably not going to have Taylor's eye for taking photos. So you're going to really, if they're sending you photos, you want to make sure you're going heavy on the captions and descriptions here. We want to know what we're looking at. Is the bath in the basement? Is the bath upstairs? Where is the bath? So make sure you're getting that information from the sellers, and then you're properly labeling those photos with captions and descriptions. And you can do that right in Paragon. And Taylor actually teaches that in her photography class. She'll show you how to do that.
Tom asked if you're allowed to do live broadcasts from a property and insert them, I'm assuming, like as a walkthrough. If I'm understanding the question correctly, if you're talking about a live on Facebook and then sharing that?
Yeah, I want to talk to that. Here's the thing. Yes, you can do things like that live, but here's the thing is, and it's come up several times in the last couple of days, it's okay if you're doing it as on your listing. What you can't do is go into someone else's listing and say, okay, I'm going to call this a virtual tour by the fact that I'm live streaming it from my cell phone, but it's not your listing. And I've seen this a few times in the last few days. That would not be allowed because it's not your listing, and you probably do not have written permission from the seller to be able to be doing that from their house or to take photos of their house, or to take videos of their house. If you're not the listing agent, you don't have the appropriate permissions in place to do that for someone else's house. So when I see the term virtual tour and they are saying they're going to go walk through someone else's listing and take a video and call it a virtual tour, that is not the appropriate term for a virtual tour. A virtual tour needs to be either a video or a live stream if you want to record your live stream and then turn it into a video
I think that's
link.
what Tom was getting at, is if they were to do a live stream with everything going on, do a live stream, can that be put in the branded?
Yeah, if they record it, they can put it in the appropriate place. So if they recorded it without their name and contact information, they can put that in the unbranded. If they record a live stream where they included their name and contact information, then they have to put it in the branded. And then that they keep in mind, always put it in the right spot.
Yeah, and it has to be a recorded one.
Yeah, it has to be a recorded one. There's no way for a live one to make its way into the database. The database is just taking a link of a video that is stored on someone else's server.
Good question, though.
All right, so we did send out a memo this week about temporary active no-shows, and we are seeing people that are writing transactions and they're writing offers, and in their offer, you may see something like subject to buyer's review. So after these 3 weeks, matter of fact, I got one myself yesterday that said that the inspection obviously would be 3 weeks out, hopefully, due to what's going on and the loose shelter in. And so you can, as long as you're following the rules and you're following the requirements that we outlined in the memo, you can, if you have the tour, we want you to have photos with labels and descriptions. You can go ahead and write an offer on a property and put in that the buyer has the right, obviously, to review the property, and it's subject to that. Dave, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, here's the thing is that when you go, is this the point where you're talking about putting the listing in Paragon?
Yes.
Okay, so you're putting this listing in Paragon. Let's assume that you did all this that Colleen's been talking about, having the seller take the photos and the video, and now you're going to put it in to Paragon. There's 5 criteria that you have to follow. And what we did is we temporarily suspended our rule. Our normal rule is that if it's active, then you have to allow for in-person showings. Well, obviously we can't do that right now, so we temporarily suspended that rule. As long as you meet the 5 criteria, you can leave it active without in-person showings. And what the 5 criteria are is that you have to have an unbranded tour, you have to have captions and descriptions and photos, and then you have to put in the public remarks that there will be no in-person showings, for them to review the photos and the video. And then in the agent remarks, you have to put in there that you're inviting them to write an offer subject to the buyer's review and approval of an in-person inspection at a later date. And then the 5th thing is that you have to make these criteria available in showing time. So in showing time, you have to put that as well. So as long as you meet that criteria, you can go ahead and list the property and have it active, even though, and you can do all this while you're sitting at home. We just went through how you do it. You do need a little help from the seller, but if the seller wants to, put it active in the MLS, we can accommodate that because we've suspended this rule. And moving forward, I've already talked to people that have already had, besides Colleen, that have already had people write offers that using this method.
William asked, if you're doing an open house, can you do a video and put it on Facebook?
I think
That's
Colleen was going to talk about how to do
Yes,
it.
it was like cue into our next section. So thank you, whoever asked that question. Yeah, what we suggest right now is obviously with this loose shelter in, is doing something like a Facebook Live for your open houses and doing it right from your home. Setting up a time on Facebook Live that you can show the virtual tour, that you can show.
You mean the agent's home, not the seller's home?
Meaning, yes, where the agent, where you're living from your couch. Well, maybe not from your couch. Hopefully, like.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering where that answer to this would go, because currently you can't go.
You can't go to the, right now, you can't go to the seller's house.
Correct. So for the next couple of weeks, while we're on this loose shelter in, we suggest that the agents stay right where they are, but you hold a Facebook Live event where people can ask questions about the listing. You can, again, showcase that seller's tour. You can maybe have a sliding deck of photos that that seller has given you. And the idea is that you still have to be able to answer questions. You still have to be able to market that property. So using something like Facebook Live to talk about the property, even though you're not at the actual property, is still a great idea. It still gives them a chance to ask their questions and learn more about the property. Also, when it comes to marketing, don't forget to use your single property website, because remember, it only showcases you and your other listings. So these are going to be all other listings that I have active or I have sold. I'm not giving away my hard work and somebody else is capitalizing on it. So don't be afraid to use your single property website, which again has your branded tours. Don't be afraid to use Facebook Live and say, you know, hey, I want to talk to you about this great property I've listed. Here's some information about it. You don't have to be at the property. You can do it right from your own agent home.
Okay, I want to jump in on this question that I saw about if the seller is okay with the showings, are we allowed to have showings? And I see that Taylor answered it correctly, but I want to expand on it. So right now, under the governor's order, the interpretation by the Michigan Association of Realtors and all the other brokers that I've talked to, their interpretations, everyone is in agreement that there are no showings allowed per the governor's order. So there's no question about that. I did say there was people that had different interpretations as it related to inspections, appraisals, and closings. Talk to your broker about that. But I have not talked to anyone that has a question or a confusion or a debate on showings. Everyone's in agreement that for the next 3 weeks, we can't go and show an in-person showing on anybody's property for that period of time.
Okay. So we covered marketing. Let's touch a little bit about when you get that offer, how you're not driving to the office anymore. What do you do when you get the offer? How do you counter it? How can you do it all digitally? Obviously, signing with AuthentiSign, that's going to be a big part of it. So again, you can do all of this right from your living room at your own agent home. And let's actually take a look at some of the counter offer tools that you'll need to be familiar with. So I'm going in.
I think just a little bit deeper on the open house, just so everybody understands, under this right, the next 3 weeks, you're not allowed to go to a vacant listing. You're not supposed to leave to go do anything business. But Christy was asking, how can you do an open house if you're not allowed to go to the listing? So when you were talking about you can be in your home as the agent and schedule an event on Facebook about the open house, were you saying that you would share the tour on your Facebook event, right? The tour that the seller did, the tour that you would put in Paragon, and then that would be the tour that you would share on your Facebook open house event?
You could, and you may, maybe you just want to open up a time where people could ask questions about it. You could share the tour. You could even, if you have some photos that the seller has sent you, you can highlight those. So there's a lot of creative ways, and I'm hoping that we'll incorporate this into our upcoming class. There's a lot of creative ways using social media where you can host these Facebook Live sessions and you can still be focusing on the house even if you're not there. You can focus on the tour that your seller has sent you. You can focus on the photos that have been supplied, and you can just say, it doesn't have to be a 4-hour open house. We got to sort of think outside the box, right? It might be 30 minutes of Facebook Live time where you're just addressing questions about your new great listing, and you're talking about it, and you're opening up for questions about the property while they can't walk through it. Remember, this isn't going to be forever. These are those temporary solutions that we've got to sort of think of outside the box, but we have to be able to do it while we're in our own agent homes.
Yeah, we can't drive to the listing to hold even a virtual open house. That would not be allowed per the governor's order. So we have to sit in our own home.
Right? Same with inspections and
Again,
appraisals,
well, here's what I'm going to say about that. When it comes to inspections, appraisals, and closings, I need everyone to consult your own broker. I know for a fact we have different brokers that have their own interpretation of the governor's order. The governor's order was not super duper specific when it came to those, and that's why we have some people have different ideas. But the good news for the MLS is that's not really an MLS issue. That's something you need to discuss with your broker. So I'm not going to say whether you can go on the inspection or not. Talk to your broker. I know for a fact everyone's in agreement. You can't do open houses and you can't do showings. I've talked to no one, and I've talked to a lot of people, but I haven't talked to anyone who's taking that position.
All right, so let's talk about, so you finally got the offer. Congratulations. Now we've got to counter it. But this isn't a situation where we have to go into the office and we have to, have people come in and sign things. We obviously cannot do that right now. So if someone emailed you the offer, so I'm just going to go into my documents within Instanet here. So I'm in Instanet. I'll say that a few times fast. I'm going to go into the documents section. And what I would do is if I got it in my email, I would probably just drag it right onto my desktop and I would pull it now into my Instanet file. So I'm just going to grab something. I'm going to grab this document here. I'm going to pretend this is my offer, got emailed to me. I'm going to now pull it into my file. And now I've got my offer, but I need to counter it. I need to have all the tools so that I can work from home. So the first tool that I'm going to show you is one of my favorites because I'm generally on the road teaching, at our different vendored MLSs. And if I just got this really great offer, but my seller wants 90,000 instead of 88 here, I need to be able to counter that. So up at the top, you're going to find a little, it almost looks like a painter's palette. This is all taught in the Instanet class, so don't worry. If you don't catch every piece of this, it's totally fine. We'll show you how to do it hands-on, step by step. But what I would want to do is I would want to open this up so that I could now counter it. So I'm going to blow it up a little bit so you can see it. I want to take that sales price from 88,000 and I want to counter it. And maybe I also want to say, hey, we're not going to leave the microwave and the dishwasher. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the tools and I'm going to say, you know what? We're not offering the dishwasher or the microwave. And of course, my brokerage policy is that we would have all parties initial next to there. And maybe I also want to now counter that price. So I'm going to grab the text box and I'm literally going to create a new text box with the appropriate price. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, that looks really messy, Colleen, and I'm going to say that we're going to do 90,000 at our counter. Now, if I just lay this on top of here, it really does look very messy, and I have OCD, so that would definitely bother me. So you can right-click on it, and you can change the transparency So I'm now writing the offer for 90,000, and you can move this around. You can change the font sizes. You can change the text box shape so that you can actually prepare a counter. If I again wanted to change the 90,000 right here, simply going to go ahead, create another text box. I'm going to type in my 90,000. And again, you want to make sure that you're changing that by right-clicking to white, and you want to move that box and shape into place. So really easy to use the counteroffer tools. Another thing that I really like is if you were like me and you're in your car a lot, you may need to do the document slicer. This is really one of my favorite tools. I'm going to grab another document here. The document slicer is where if you had sent all of the documents to your buyer to sign, now you have this one big PDF. So I'm going to pretend I sent Bill, my buyer's agency agreement, my offer to purchase. I've got his pre-approval in there, but maybe I also have some information, contact information, maybe a little bit about me as the agent. Now he signs everything in one easy email, but how do I now turn around and send it to the co-oping agent when it's all in one email? I don't want the co-oping agent to have his buyer's agency. I don't want him to have his contact information. I don't want him to have all those extra pieces that maybe were included in that email. So there is a tool called the document slicer that's right up here at the top. When you click on that, it basically opens up the documents, or as you can see, I have multiple documents here, and I'm just going to pick the things I want to send now to the co-oping agent. So I'm going to say I want to send the co-oping agent the first 4 pages. I'm then going to go ahead and hit save. I want to do a save as because I don't want to tamper with my original. And I'm going to call this counter for Christine. And I'm now going to reduce that document to my new PDF that's only going to contain those 4 pages that I can email right over to Christine. Okay, so it's a way of not having to print everything off and separate it, now rescan it, get it to that co-oping agent. Remember, we're trying to do this all digitally, right from our couch. Lastly is how are they going to sign it? Over here on the left side, we've got the pen for AuthentiSign. I'm simply going to go in. You can see I use AuthentiSign a lot. I'm going to go ahead and click on Add. The hardest part of AuthentiSign is just remembering to marry the signatures to the transaction. So I'm going to say I want this to go right back into my Cuddle file here. And I'm going to call this that counteroffer for Christy Donaldson. And I'm going to hit save. It's 4 simple steps to use AuthentiSign. Remember, you're really just pulling from all the documents you've created in Transaction Desk. So you're going to go to part 1, which is really done for you. It's going to send everything in a line. When we're teaching our Instanet class, we'll even show you things like the private participant. I'm going to use Christy Donaldson because she's always been so nice to me. Let's say that I sent this to my buyer and my buyer signed it, and I send it to Christy Donaldson with a basic key. If Christy reviews the offer and she likes it, she can actually put her client's information, and that can actually go full circle, meaning nobody has to upload it anywhere. No one has to touch it. We can actually have a meeting of the minds between the 2 agents, and everybody can sign it. After that happens, it can even be sent directly to the title company or lender automatically with your personalized message. So a whole lot you can do with this, and we teach a whole class on this. So under participants, all I really want to do is I just want to grab my signing party. It's going to ask me, how are they signing? Well, today they're going to be signing remotely because I'm not standing next to them like I do when I'm in person signing. You can also include an attorney who can review documents. When they receive the documents, they have to acknowledge they've accepted them or rejected them. If they accept them, it travels on to the client so they can go ahead and sign them. It also shows that the attorney reviewed them. If they reject them, it stops the flow. It does not go any further to the client, and it lets you, the agent, know that there's a problem. Lastly, the CC role. This is not like CC on an email. What this does is it looks and it will tell you if that document is fully executed, meaning everyone you've said is going to sign it has signed it. It will automatically deliver it to your title company or your lender with personal instructions from you that only they will see. So I actually had a divorce situation going on, and I wanted to let my title company know that we needed separate closing rooms. They were in the process of a divorce. Only the title company saw my comments, and that's due to the CC rule. So all you're going to do is literally pick who's signing. You can have multiple parties and put them in whatever order you want. You're also going to pick which of the documents you want them to sign. And by the way, your seller's disclosures, your lead-based paint things, those are already pulled over for you into Instant. That's something we do right from Paragon. We pull them into your file. Lastly, you're just going in and setting up where you want the clients to sign. When they receive it, it comes from you, the agent. So I'm just going to quickly grab an initial here, and I'm going to have them initial and sign. In our class, we'll show you how, if there are places that the seller or buyer must sign, that they have to choose one. Like, let's say you're working with a buyer and you're going to ask them, does he want to have a home inspection yes or a home inspection no? Well, if you made them both optional, they might get confused and check them both. Now you have a mess and you have to start all over. Where here, I can allow them to check one or the other, but they can't choose both. We'll teach you those types of tips and tricks in the Transaction Best class. Lastly, you're going to go ahead and hit next, and it's now going to be delivered to clients for signature. The nice thing is you can track where things are at any time. By going back to your pen, you can see the status, you can see who signed it, who needs to sign it, you can even resend it. So if I'm looking at a document, I literally can see when they went in, when they authenticated, who signed it, who needs to sign it, and even resend it to a party if they haven't. So it makes it really easy and convenient. Okay, let's see. I think that brings us down to the congratulations, you're clear to close. Dave, did I miss anything?
Before Dave chimes in, I did have a good question. If I'm an agent and I'm using AuthentiSign, but the other party is zip forms, how do they talk to each other?
Oh, good. Okay, so you have filled this out and you've sent it in AuthentiSign, and they're using DocuSigns. If you're sending it in AuthentiSign and you have sent it to them, they don't have to create a special account to sign it. They can sign it right in there. If they want to pull that document, it just basically locks it into a locked PDF. I have had documents where one of the parties has signed with DocuSign and one of the parties has signed with Instanet. You can still do that. I know people always ask me with .loop, can you take documents from Instanet and have them? And the answer is yes. Is it always as easy? No, sometimes, because the agent has to pull them in. They have to know how to do that. It might not be as seamless, but it absolutely can be done. Okay, any other questions? All right, so that brings us to closing now. And as Dave said, there are still some things that you're going to have to go to your brokerage. When it comes to things like closings and things like submitting an EMD, those can vary from brokerage to brokerage. Some brokers own their own ancillaries, some do not. There's a lot of discrepancy right now with our closings allowed, our closings not allowed. Some are saying yes, some are saying no. I've seen everything from 2 days ago, I saw a drive-up closing that a broker was hosting. I myself had a closing on Friday where the pens were all handed out with Clorox wipes, and now the buyers and sellers had to sit in separate rooms. I've seen them right down to where the agent cannot go to the closing. It can only be the buyers and sellers, and they have to be scheduled 30 minutes apart. So it is all over the board right now. And I will tell you, many brokerages are doing online EMD submissions. So you want to check with your broker, find out what the policy is, but many of the brokers out there are actually submitting the buyers a link where they're adding their routing number and banking information for that EMD, or submitting even a copy of the check. So, check with your broker because it varies. Some people are saying, no, closings are not allowed. Some people are saying, yes, they are allowed. So we're kind of in this time of uncertainty when it comes to EMDs and closings. So we're going to ask you to check with your broker, and if something more complete comes down, we'll absolutely let you know. Couple takeaways, please remember there are a couple should not do's. As Dave mentioned, if you are the listing agent, and if you have been given express permission to, video tour your house, let's say that the 3 weeks go by and the quarantine is lifted and you are given express written permission, in your listing agreement that you can go in and do a video tour of your own, that's great. But please don't walk into someone else's listing without written express permission and think I'm just going to walk in and video tour their home. They could have belongings in there that they don't want displayed, and it's just not something that you can do. You have to have written permission to do a video tour. Also, please remember, do not steal other people's photos, meaning if you're going into the MLS and you're like, oh, I'm going to list this house and I don't have any photos and my seller doesn't know how to work their camera phone, I'm just going to take those spaghettis. Well, obviously that's a problem too, because that's a copyright violation. Copyright is triplicate, it can be expensive, and it's just wrong. So if your seller cannot send you photos, check with your BS&A record. Most of the BS&A records have a photo attached to them. Check with RPR.
You can look at old photos in the MLS for the purposes of the CMA. You can even include them in the CMA report, but that's the limit. You can't use them to put in your new listing. You can't use them. You can't use them in your marketing. So you can't use other agents' photos from a previous listing.
There's
All
one
right.
question that kind of I thought maybe was going to get covered, but I might have missed it responding to some of the questions. So one of them was, one good question was, I see on the MLS, but how do you add disclosures in the MLS as an attachment from Instanet?
Oh, great question. So yes, you can add, and by the way, I meant to cover that. So that is, thank you for bringing that up. In Paragon, right under the D, you can obviously put the seller's disclosure, the lead-based paint, some other good ideas right now, because we're not going and picking things up and dropping things off. Master deeds and bylaws for your condominium associations, bank addendums that need to be filled out. I have a very good agent friend who has her own checklist that she puts in there. So she has information, more information about the deal. What we've done is we've done the deep linking integration. So if you are to start a transaction from our Paragon to push it over into Transaction Desk, those attached documents will also come with it. So let's say, for example, you just showed this Marsha condo and you said, oh, we love it, let's write it up, When you go in and you push that information right into Instanet, along with that are going to be the seller's disclosures, the lead-based paint, the bylaws, whatever I have attached as the agent. Those are pushed. You do not have to add them. We actually do that for you. So when it's pushing that information in, right under your document section, you will find those seller's disclosures. You'll find those lead-based paint disclosures. They will be able to be signed. So when you send out your purchase agreement, those can go right along with it. So everything can be signed in one easy step. Good questions though. Taylor, we have any more?
No, I'm responding to one. One question was just asking, which is good in case others missed this, but when you do market stats, where do you get the square footage? I only see price per square foot. Where do you change that? So it's actually right up at the top when you're in market stats. I don't know if you still have market stats open or not, Colleen.
I can open it. Anything for you, Miss Taylor. You've taught me that product so well. All right, here we go.
So down at the bottom, I believe this might be what you're referencing as price per square foot, which was where Colleen made her graph from. She did an average price per square foot. But if you just want to do any of these other types of graphs for let's say Shelby Township, you can type in Shelby Township, and the third option over, you'll see square footage. So you'll have all sizes or a range of square footages, or you can even hit the custom button and you can set your square footages that you want pulled into the report or into the graphs. And that's all pulled from MyRealSource, all of the data in MyRealSource. Hopefully that answers your question.
It includes the data sharing data as well.
And data sharing, yeah.
And don't forget, if you're working waterfront, you can still use this too. Go to My Areas, draw your area, use the drawing tools. Maybe you want to highlight, maybe you're working Grosse Pointe Park, Grosse Pointe, maybe you're working all the way down to here. You can actually just draw that and you can run stats on your defined area. We also talked a little bit about adding the fast stats directly into your Cloud CMA. Fast stats are literally, it's so easy. I can't believe more people don't use this. Fast stats literally load up a map. You click on the city that you're looking for the stats for. So I'm going to say, I'm looking for Richmond stats. What's going on in Richmond today? I can see Richmond right now, and this is a really good one to use. Right now, Richmond market is down almost 40%. When I go up here to average, the average median sales price here, 192 to 248. So a lot of times they're really telling a story. We have low inventory, so we're seeing generally a higher sales price. So it's very cool. It breaks condos down from residential, but don't be afraid to use those to educate your sellers on what's going on in their marketplace.
Okay, I know all the way through this presentation, which you've done a great job at, you've said, we've got a class for that. We've got a class for that. Well, what we need the people on this call to do is let us know which classes they would like to see, and so that we can have some help in when to schedule and prioritize which classes we should do first as opposed to others.
I responded to one person and was just going to kind of save it at the end. Basically what you're talking about, Dave, is that we're shifting a lot of our classes online. Many are already as webinars or recorded courses. So when you go to our website, Colleen, is it possible for you to open up myrealsource.com?
Sure.
Under our website, under services, you'll see popular documents. Could you click on that, Colleen?
Are you seeing that, Taylor?
Let me see. Hang on.
Are you looking for the technology certification? Is that what you're?
Yep. Sorry, okay. It got pushed back. So
I knew where you were going.
Yeah. This has all of our classes that and it was just updated in January. The only class that's not on there is now this class, because Colleen was so amazing and just wrote up this class yesterday so that we could get this class out, given all of the changes going on right now. So all of our classes are on here. It was just updated in January, and it's actually put in a suggested order of taking our classes. So just because Colleen was saying, oh, we have a more detailed class on that, this is a gist of everything that you can do, some little helpful tips. But if you really want to dive in deeper to Instanet or Cloud CMA, these are all of our classes, and I believe majority of them have been shifted to webinars or recorded courses right now.
Yeah, we're limited to doing that right now. So if you have an interest in any certain class, let us know that. Also, if you have any interest in a class that you don't see there, or because of the special circumstances we're under right now, you have an idea for a class that we don't have, it doesn't mean that we can't create one, like we just created the one you just saw now. So let us know that as well. And let us know any feedback you have about this class, any tweaks, changes, whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it. We need to know that.
And Debbie, are you still on? Okay.
No,
what ones so far are courses online that they can take, or are webinars right now?
We've done orientation. We are doing Instanet. We've done Instanet and Authentisign. We have the Collab Center on Thursday. We're going to take a poke at social media on Friday too. So we are going.
And the photos class too is also, even though I know you guys can't go to your listings right now to take photos, but the photo class is also always a webinar. So down the road, if that's something that you want to take, we have that as an online course as well. Or you just want to get a refresher, if there's a demand for that before you guys are actually, once this is all lifted and you can go take photos, you can get trained on that. Are there any more that you plan to make into a webinar, Debbie?
Yeah, I want to do all of the classes. You know, we've got the mobile agent. That's going to be a little trickier trying to show my phone on the computer on the web, but we think we've got it. Market stats is coming up next week too. The CMA class.
That's already a recorded course though, right?
Yeah, yes it is.
But the live webinar one would be, we're thinking next week?
Yes, on the 31st.
Okay.
One other thing I wanted to talk about is I've had a couple of people ask me, okay, due to this 3-week lockdown, if I have a seller that wants to have it conditionally withdrawn, will the days on market still rack up? The answer is no, but if you leave it as active and have the no-show language and the 5 criteria that we talked about, it's possible that you could still have an offer for your seller even within these 3 weeks. And I would remind everybody that sometimes there are sellers who need to sell. I remember my family was in a situation a while back where there was a need to sell a house. And if you have a seller that needs to, at least we've made the changes to our rules, the suspension to our rules, to allow for you to still leave it active, even though they can't do in-person showings right now. So have those conversations with your sellers. But I think that if it was me, if I were doing it, I would try and encourage my sellers to leave it on the market because there's still low inventory, a lot of demand still. So I think that it's a good idea to leave it active.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming today. Again, we would love your feedback. We did put this together rather quickly. Thank you for being so patient. We had a few technical difficulties today, but we do appreciate you coming. We love your feedback. As Dave mentioned, if there's something we didn't cover or a class that you feel that, you know, hey, I've got a great idea for a class, we'd love to hear from you. Other than that, stay safe, and we hope you have a great day.
Thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you.